Before we move on to action recollection and action indicators, we're going to go over one other item. Part of SPORE is dwell time. And we'll go over why this is so important when we get to action recollection. So you can look around me, nothing's really contaminated. I mean, that is a little bit, but what I did, I pretty much just walked around this one little spot for about 15 seconds, simulating, Dave and I sitting, talking, making a plan. Like, this is called dwell time. We're just killing time, standing here like, well, I don't know. Maybe it was left, maybe it was right. Just leaving a whole bunch of footprints. And that'll make sense, again, once we get to the action recollection. So this is a dwell time spot. Clearly, someone's been standing here for quite a while, moving around, but in this one idle spot. This would be a simulation of, Dave and I making a plan, or, a bad guy just taking a break, walking around, scoping things out. We're going to go over action recollection. So another thing you can be looking for is, excretion, not just fecal matter. This kind of fits in the sign versus SPORE. To make it simple, here's another thing you're looking for. Dave and I, we both dip. So I can be looking for, as crazy as it sounds, dip spit. Even though it's been, over 24 hours, if we find a shaded spot that's getting no sun, there's a good chance there will still be evidence. And yes, you can get down, like look at the wet spot, go pick up a leaf, look at it, smell it. You can see the grains of, Copenhagen in there. That's confirmation that's you. Dip spit, discarded dip, wet tree, go ahead and give it a smell. If it smells like urine and it's still wet, it's probably you. Fecal matter, gum wrappers, gum, cigarette butts, anything that you leave behind can be studied and used to track. Even another thing you can be looking for is, bruised or creased leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and really dig in on this leaf and compare and contrast for you. So if you look nice and close, this is the leaf I stepped on. This is the one I did not. So undamaged, damaged. You can see this is nice and floppy already. Look on the bottom. Oftentimes you'll see a discoloration. You can see this, even with the sun, I'll use that. You can see the bruising. So the way leaves bruise, this moisture starts leaking through. So all these little dark spots, that's bruising. This one has none, this one has some. Something did that. So let me go ahead and dig in here. Oop, a little too much. So you can immediately see a little bit of shade difference. So that's bruising. Creasing, the crease in a leaf, they have memory, not like us, but physical memory. That crease is quite obvious once you develop the knack for tracking. But something calls that, and if you're on the right track, you want to add all the evidence you can to support what you're tracking without convincing yourself you're on the right track. Look at what you have, make sure it's accurate, and continue on. And continue on. So now you know a lot about SPORE and what to look for. As we do this, you'll start seeing a little more hands-on what everything looks like. But before we start, we need to do some action recollection, which will include action indicators. For example, action indicators, anything that changed. So one will be on our tracks. We'll see footprints. Great. All of a sudden we see a big disturbance. Like, wait a second. Dave took a spill in episode 3. Oh yeah. So I need to be looking for a spot where it looks like Dave had fallen. So I'm looking for scuffed boot prints, disturbed leaves, hand indents, all sorts of stuff like that. So action indicators are pretty much anything that identifies an action. Whether we took off sprinting, running from something, we fell, we tripped. And also even the fact that, when we were tracking the deer, starting out, we knew the deer was probably 40 yards out. So we could just walk 40 yards. So our stride's going to be whatever it's going to be. Once we started having to track the blood, our strides get a lot smaller. So I'm looking for, right now, smaller strides, because that's the last thing we were doing was looking for blood. So I'm looking for smaller strides. I'll get a boost of confidence when I see larger strides that match my footprints. So that's another action indicator. Action recollection. This is all based upon your personality. Me personally, litter and pollution drives me crazy. So I tend to notice, oh, there's a beer can. Oh, someone left this trash there. There's a cigarette butt. I just happen to notice that because it irritates me to no end. So I'm going to use that as a skill set. I'm going to go ahead and take a few minutes. Like, all right, when we were walking, what ticked me off? You know what? I saw that pack of cigarettes that was all old, decayed. Saw that beer can. Okay, so all these things I can recall are going to be, again, another little confidence booster as I'm walking and tracking. If I see that, I'm like, oh, I remember that. Awesome. I'm going to use that as confidence building and a means to keep me on track. Dave, on the other hand, he's all about flora, fauna, plants and vegetation. He's going to notice, you know, poison sumac, white sumac, rhododendron, rosebay rhododendron. That's his thing. So I'm going to sit with Dave, whole list up everything he recalls seeing and the location as I will. Another thing I want to think about is the terrain. I remember as Dave was tracking, he was going slightly uphill where he took a spill, walked up a little farther, we took a left onto a game trail, saw the deer bedded down, and that's about the time we realized we need to bed down. So we did walk to find some water. If we can self-track back to that spot, that's gonna, one, give me the practice and get me in the mindset of tracking and give me the confidence that I'm on the right track. So if we can get back to where Dave took the fall, we know we're no farther from the truck. Because right now we're walking around a little bit and we could be getting a little farther. Could be getting closer. We're not really sure and we don't want to mess around. So if we decided to go back to that spot where Dave took a spill, at least we know we're somewhat close to the vehicle. And that's just to boost confidence. And we could probably set up there again and wait for search and rescue. The last thing before we get started is called getting your baseline. Basically takes a couple minutes, really simple. You can just sit for a minute and you just kind of just stare around. And what you're doing is you're not staring at any one particular detail. You're kind of peripherally watching and just kind of studying the terrain. Studying the terrain. It's kind of like, okay, getting the feel for it, what it kind of looks like as the big picture. Relax. Look again, look for details, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to pick up on fresh tracks or even old tracks. It just stands out once you get your baseline. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, had you not done your baseline, you may not notice all these prints. So per the time shadow effect, when you're tracking, you always want to keep your spoor between you and the sun or whatever your light source is. It could be the moon. So if here's my spoor, the sun's over here, I want to be on this side. As the sun comes up, once it reaches another new angle, I'm going to go and switch spots. That way I can see the shadows and I'm not blocking the shadow, making it easier to track. Now, in order to preserve your sanity, your patience, and your eyesight, what you want to be looking for is any sort of sign or spoor 30 to 40 feet ahead of you, if you can. If your line of sight doesn't go that far, then you just want to look a little farther. The reason is our eyes get stressed and get tired pretty quickly, believe it or not. So if I'm, studying tracks here, like, yep, after 15 minutes, I'm going to be tired. My eyes are going to be tired. My back's going to be tight. If I can see tracks and kind of like study, like, oh, there's like 6 broken branches over there. Okay, I'm just going to walk straight there. So what that's called is macro tracking. Micro tracking, we're looking at a footprint, getting a flag, marking it, studying it, taking notes. Okay, cool, that's one. Oh, there's another one 5 inches ahead. Let's study that. We're not up to that. If I can find some tracks, some spoor, confirm it ahead of me, like, oh, broken branches, oh, there's a dip can, I'm going to go ahead and walk that 40 feet and save all that time and energy. So what we are about to do is a modified Tracker 360. So we're going to say that this is our contaminated scene. So this is, let's say, the shelter. We know for about 50 yards, Dave and I, left spoor all over the place, footprints, fecal matter, all that. So all this is pretty much destroyed. We're not going to find much evidence from there. So what I'm going to do is have Dave stay right here. I want to keep him in sight and in sound because I don't want to get lost even more. So I'm going to choose any direction. I'm going to choose here. And what I'm going to do is do a big 360-degree circle all the way around in hopes that what I will find is our tracks coming in. That way, once I cross that path, Dave, come here. Dave will move to this spot. I will continue tracking. If I find another spot, again, Dave will move down. If I get 50 yards out and have nothing, lost the spoor, I might come back to Dave, like, hold on, Dave, let me do this again. And what I'll do is start over here again, a bigger circle, until I find that spoor again. And that's, we're pretty much gonna do that the entire time until we get home. This is also called lost spore procedure. So as you know, we're tracking here, just like I said, I come down here, decide, you know, I lost spore. I'm gonna have Dave actually come to here, because I know I have spore here, and do a small 360 here to save time and energy, because this scene is not contaminated. So I can do a small 360 here while Dave stays here. And again, you know, if this is a hostile situation, you know, Dave could be pulling security while I'm searching. So this is another example of getting your baseline. I'm going to use this as an example. Let's take a quick second just to kind of study the terrain. What I'm going to do is walk through these briars right here, close out the scene and open it back up. You'll see the difference. All right, so just walk through here. You had your baseline. I'm going to walk you through what we're looking for. So first thing I notice, these raspberry bushes tilted. So that's kind of suspect. You're not going to be able to get it on camera, but I can see indentations right there as well, and a few more up there. So I'm looking around, everything is growing more or less vertical, but these few are tilted to the side, especially this one. This one's definitely tilted to the side. And also you got to consider, these are, I believe these are raspberries. They got thorns on them. So if we were walking through this, we're not going to be very stealthy. Probably going to step on things, push them over, cut them if we need to. So I'm going to use that information to increase the odds of us staying on track. Okay, so I got more foot indentations, things still pushed over, and then this is a natural thing that I would probably do. And I get tired of walking through this, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. So, that cut mark, if you compare it to the background colors, it's kind of a whitish color. If you compare it to everything else behind it, minus those dead beech leaves, it does stand out, especially when you're actually out here holding it and touching it. There's another sign, that would be aerial spore. Everything on the ground would be ground spore. And we're gonna keep on going. Ow! All right, and even here, looks like something's walked through here. And I do remember Dave and I were chewing gum, so I'm gonna give you about 5 seconds to see if you can find the blue gum. That's my casual walk. A little lazy, a little tired. See if you come a little closer. I meant to disrupt this a little more so you can see it a little better. But even little signs like that, can you see this? Little ground, a little disturbed. It's right there. Can you see what I'm focusing on? Yeah, okay. So I can come here, this looks a little disturbed. Just touch some dirt. Oh, that's fallen. All right, something disrupted this. Okay, go ahead and study it. Can you look on this side? So right here, it's nice and flat. Good chance just me moving this, you know, moved it an inch or so forward. I know it didn't because I just stepped on it, but that would be an indicator. If this rock were here and it got shifted, it's gonna expose, you know, where its bed was, the flat spot. So you can look for that. Another thing, especially if it's damp conditions, it's hard to see, you know, wet footprints on the dirt, especially if it's wet. But oftentimes, you know, sun will dry the rocks first. So if I were to step on that, and it's damp on the ground, there's a good chance I'm leaving a footprint there of moisture. And over here, just taking a closer look, again, with your baseline, this will stand out a lot more. But I'm seeing, you know, a steady pile of leaves, and then leaves kind of disturbed. Leaves disturbed. These leaves are higher off the ground versus these are compact. Evidence that someone or something has stepped here. And another thing you want to look for, especially in damp conditions, is as we walk, you know, we'll drag leaves And if it's, you know, early in the morning and there's dew, the tops of these leaves will all be damp. So as we walk and step and turn leaves over, you know, the wet side will turn over and be face up. You look close enough, that will stand out quite a bit. You won't see it in this because it's bone dry right now, but that's another thing you can look for is the moisture on the leaves. And it's pretty clear, especially when it's damp. So just past this Long Island iced tea can, believe it or not, that's one of my favorite drinks. And I happen to have an old one sitting in my pack. So this would be a good time to kind of see the color difference on what the sun and the elements do. And I know this can is about 4 weeks old because I put it out here in our lost situation. Yeah, this is all simulated, as you know, but you can see the color difference. Fresh, not so fresh. So this has been exposed to the sun for about, you know, 3 to 4 weeks. You can see the color difference. And that's your little beginner tip on how to identify the age of, you know, an old beer can or an old Pepsi can or a Long Island can. Color difference. This is a little sample of what it looks like when fresh tracks are created. Now from here, hopefully you can already see the color difference. The tops of these leaves have been exposed to sunlight, so the drier side being up is going to be lighter versus the bottom side is going to be darker. This is a better point with this beech. So this was the part exposed to the sun over time. Once I kick it over, you'll see it's a lot darker when you compare it to these two. So bottom, top.